Major breaking political news out of St. Paul, Minneapolis, Minnesota. Tim Walz will not seek re-election as governor, and what a fall from grace this has been for him. You might recall in the spring of 2023, he pushed through several progressive ideas to the state legislature that caught the attention of Barack Obama, who went to Twitter to give his endorsement for the programs, which eventually caught the attention of people like Kamala Harris, who chose him to be her running mate as the vice president. Introduced in Chicago at the convention in August of last year, a debate that was an absolute disaster with J.D. Vance at one point called himself a knucklehead. But after reportedly billions of dollars have been stolen from taxpayers by way of the state of Minnesota, Tim Walz says he will not seek a third term. What a remarkable 2 years in the national spotlight has been for him, Dana.
And Walz hit Trump in his announcement. He said Donald Trump and his allies in Washington, in St. Paul, and online want to make our state a colder, meaner place. They want to poison our people against each other by attacking our neighbors. And ultimately, they want to take away much of what makes Minnesota the best place in America to raise a family. Now, okay, what else has been happening in this last month? Well, you have the discovery that there has been incredible amounts of fraud, and I think 98% of the people arrested were Somalis who are immigrants there in the state that were taking COVID funds and basically and Medicaid funds and stealing them from the American people under his watch. Or his lack of watch. Now, remember, Kamala Harris chooses him as the vice presidential choice, partly because he couldn't conceivably upstage her. She says in her book that she didn't want to go with Josh Shapiro of Pennsylvania, who because he was Jewish. She actually says this, okay? And then she goes with Tim Walz, and he was a disaster from beginning to end. He also has a lot of confidence in himself, but I think that it was very clear to him after he had some discussions over the weekend that he would lose. He was a drag on the Democratic Party nationally, and the best thing that he could have done for the party, actually, and probably for him and his family, is to take this action today, which is to decide not to run for re-election.
So the initial reporting suggests $1 billion has been stolen. Since then, that number's gone higher.
It's higher.
How high, we don't know where it ends. And there are suggestions that it could be similar in other states.
Similar in other states. So Tampon Timmy decides to take the off-ramp. Tampon Timmy decides that he's going to not run for re-election. Well, the election's probably not until November, but in the interim, he's going to stay on as governor. That ain't going to happen. It's only a matter of time before we see Tim Walz actually resign. He just has to figure out how he's going to have his parachute, what he's going to do to make it good for him. This thing is probably going to land he and others in jail. I would not be surprised if we saw this guy actually get arrested. Actually, I beg to differ. I don't think Tim Walz is going to get arrested. I don't think Tim Walz can do time. I think Tim Walz is going to turn state's evidence. I think Tim Walz will end up being a stool pigeon. If what President Trump has been posting, if you guys were seeing some of the stuff he's been posting, President Trump has actually alluded to the fact that Tim Walz was in on the unaliving of that Democrat Minnesota politician who sniffed out the fraud. You remember that? They kind of swept that under the rug. Nobody wants to talk about that anymore. But a woman and another guy, I think two of them, were killed, and they voted against some of the stuff that Walz was doing. And President Trump, with his megaphone, came out and said, in no uncertain terms, that Tim Walz had something to do with it. And Tim Walz reacted, I think it was Saturday or Sunday, by saying, oh, he's being, all the stuff they do when they deflect. And then the very next day, he says, I'm not running anymore. What happened between the time that President Trump posted the video and said you were involved in it to you this morning going, I'm done? That's what people need to be asking. People need to be asking what exactly it is that you're running away from. If it's the grift, if it's the fraud, it's too late. So if you're hoping that Amy Klobuchar or somebody else could step in and save Minnesota, it's too late. You should have done this sooner, way before Nick Shirley showed up and was showing everybody what was going on in Minnesota. Now, I'm going to say something that I don't want to piss you off, but now does it start making more sense that this thing was somehow a plan? You still think that a 23-year-old YouTuber just showed up in Minnesota and just went to a couple of addresses and just dropped that? I'm thinking we're looking at a huge, huge plan to get this guy out, to get him talking, not to get him in jail, because all roads are going to lead back to Kamala and probably Biden and other people. This is too big. Let me prove it to you. From what you've seen of Tim Walz, does he look like the kind of guy that could mastermind a multi-billion-dollar fraud? Does he come across as Lex Luthor, that he could come up with this kind of a plan? Nah, there's people behind the scenes. Again, why am I saying this? Why does it matter to me in thinking that this is a much bigger thing than just Tim Walz? Because the largesse of the number. When President Trump on the airplane said, I think it could be close to 50 billion, that's way, way bigger than Tim Walz. Where did that money go? These Somalians don't look like they're, sitting on $50 billion. Could perhaps that money and the money from California and the money from Illinois, could that money be going to fund other illicit activities? Could it be a part of this?
When I get back into the Oval Office, I will totally obliterate the deep state. They will be obliterated.
At this point, I think we have to begin looking at this thing with that as the primary lens. We need to be looking, Tim Walz is not resigning. Tim Walz isn't going to go for re-election. They found $50 billion in fraud. Well, that's probably deep state. That guy doesn't look like a criminal mastermind. We've heard him do his speeches. He ain't got it. I've seen his daughter talk. We've seen his wife. Turn the page. No way. No way that guy orchestrated that. Take your office, shut the hell up, kiss up the Somalis, and make sure you got my money. Gavin Newsom seems a little bit more intelligent, but he doesn't seem like he's the type of guy who could orchestrate a billion-dollar fraud. So now, me personally, you can do what you want. I personally am now going to start looking at everything through the lens of that President Trump does as the means to take down the deep state. I think we're starting to see the plan being executed. There are going to be more dominoes that follow, and I think it's going to keep going. Let me show you what he did today. It seems as though at this point, the media is kind of catching on.
I'm proud of the way we treat our neighbors. I'm proud of the way that we welcome people to this state. I'm proud of the way that we innovate. And I'm proud of the way that we are optimists for the future. No one's taking this away from us. Not the fraudsters. Certainly not this president. Not on my watch. Tomorrow, I'll be back with you. I'll give you an update on America's best paid family medical leave program that is now a week into it. And at that time, I'll take all your questions. Thank you all.
Thank you, Press. I'll be back tomorrow. More tomorrow. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Dude had to run off. Didn't want to take any questions about. But before he left, he talked about how he's giving away a gazillion dollars more. That ain't gonna happen. I'm pretty sure what I'm looking at is that state of Minnesota might get put in receivership. Just watch what happens. and just keep that lens in front of you, that filter, like that Instagram filter, and think, okay, deep state obliteration, deep state obliteration. Wanted to show you this too before we go. What Pete Hegseth did with Mark Kelly. 6 weeks ago, Senator Mark Kelly and 5 other members of Congress released a reckless and seditious video that was clearly intended to undermine good order and military discipline. As a retired Navy captain who is still receiving a military pension, Captain Kelly knows he is still accountable to military justice, and the Department of War and the American people expect justice. Now, I want you to understand, General Raising Cane said they've been working on this plan for Venezuela for a couple of months. The seditious six decide last month or so to release this video telling people you don't have to listen to orders. If you think the orders are questionable, were they at that time trying to get people to, I don't know, if they had wind of it, if they sniffed it, was this something that they were doing to possibly mess up the operation? I don't know. I don't know what Mark Kelly knew or what he didn't know, but what I do know is that they were trying to tell the military, people in the military, don't listen to orders. And then we see a massive operation, which luckily went off flawlessly. He says, therefore, in response to Senator Mark Kelly's seditious statements and his pattern of reckless misconduct, the Department of War is taking administrative action against Captain Mark E. Kelly, retired. The department has initiated retirement grade determination proceedings under 10 U.S.C. 1370F with reduction in his retired grade resulting in a corresponding reduction in his retirement pay. Bam! To ensure this action, the Secretary of War has also issued a formal letter of censure, which outlines the totality of Captain, for now, meaning he's probably going to get demoted, Kelly's reckless misconduct. This censure is a necessary process step and will be placed in Captain Kelly's official and permanent military personnel file. Captain Kelly has been provided notice of the basis for this action and has 30 days to submit a response. The retirement grade determination process directed by Secretary Hegseth will be completed within 45 days. Captain Kelly's status as a sitting United States Senator does not exempt him from any accountability, and further violation could result in further action. So right now, Kelly needs to walk very, very softly, because I don't know what that further action might be, but it could mean Leavenworth. These actions are based on Captain Kelly's public statements from June through December, in which he characterized lawful military operations as illegal and counseled members of the armed forces to refuse lawful orders. This conduct was seditious in nature and violated Articles 133 and 134 of the Uniform Code of Military Justice, to which Captain Kelly remains subject as a retired officer receiving pay. Bam! Like Emeril Lagasse. Bam! They're going to cut your money, bro. You might have to go to work. You're not going to get that fat military paycheck. You effed around, and now you're finding out. And I don't have any problem with that. That is what this administration is going to do. They are not taking crap from anybody.